but as we were talking about, there are all these big changes, technological, demographic, diseases, all these things are hitting, which are creating rogue waves. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, you've heard of a black swan event, right? These things that come out of nowhere, they're unpredictable, and they upend the world. The thing is, when you talk to the guy who coined that phrase, a guy named Nassim Taleb, and he says 2008, yeah, that wasn't a black swan event. He says COVID, that wasn't a black swan event. So these things that CEOs like to say, oh yeah, I couldn't have known. Well, actually, we could have. We chose to not look. When you take a look at COVID, right, what was really going on here? The Office of Net Assessment at the U.S. Department of Defense said this was an increasing threat. Marsh McLennan, which is kind of the big risk management house, they misidentified it. I think they miscalculated. But at HP, we did the same research, and unlike the 8 of 10 of the largest companies in America that failed to identify pandemics as a threat, we did. Not only did we do that, but we started looking at how do we create, and not just for this reason, right? We looked at a whole range of reasons why this would be valuable. We looked at, how do we actually start having people work from home? What would happen if our workforce was increasingly not in offices? How could we help companies digitally transform if something like this happened? We invested in technologies that smart diagnostics technologies that can help deal with rapidly diagnosing diseases, and that company just came to market. Actually, it's been publicly announced in the last couple of months. And so when you start looking at what happens, what's possible, you can start to actually figure out how to turn it to your advantage. And so how would you look at something like COVID, right? Like, yeah, it came out of nowhere, but not really.
There was SARS and MERS and I've got that Bill Gates talk where he talks about these diseases. So it's not completely out of left field, is it?
It's not. I think what we misunderstood was the difference between a static threat and a dynamic threat. So we hadn't had a pandemic really like that got out of control in the same way as COVID has since 1918. Certainly since the Hong Kong flu in the 50s or 60s. What we missed was that these types of diseases were happening more frequently. We were just getting better at containing them. And just like, just like New York, which, they weren't prepared for the flash floods of last week. Well, the thing about nature is she's eventually gonna break the dam. Yeah, she's eventually gonna break the dike. And so the question isn't just how do you protect yourself from that, it's what happens next. And there was a knowable domino that would happen, when there was a next pandemic or when there was a next geopolitical shock that caused a similar type of global shutdown and supply chain crash. And we could have known that. We could have modeled out what would happen to our finances, what would happen to our operations, how would it change our operating environment, our external environment, and how would it change our strategy, things like our demand forecasts. And what would we do if all of those things hit at once? So the goal really shouldn't be for your career or for business to prepare for any individual rogue wave, right? The likelihood of a meteor strike is like way too small to plan for. What you should be thinking about is how do you be prepared whatever happens?